Yeah, I was thinking in town. There he is. He's walking in.
Just had less than 5 minutes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I am Mayor Shelley Carlson. It is January 23rd, 2023, and it's 5:31 p.m. I would like to welcome everybody to the Moorhead City Council. The Moorhead City Council welcomes public input on issues listed on the agenda or of general community interest, time and council permitting. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. If you would like to address the council during the meeting, I would like you to fill out a form provided by the city clerk, and we will call you up during item number 7 under citizens addressing council. If comments were submitted to the clerk prior to the meeting via email or phone, those comments will be entered into record. For more information on participation, please visit the council meetings page on the City of Moorhead website at cityofmoorhead.com. We, the Moorhead City Council, collectively and with gratitude, acknowledge the sacred land the City of Moorhead is built upon. We acknowledge the people who have resided here for generations and recognize that the spirit of the Dakota, Ojibwe, Métis, and all indigenous communities permeates this land. And with that, Madam Clerk, could I get a roll call, please?
Ryan Nelson.
Here.
Matt Gilbertson.
Here.
Heather Caroon. Heather Niesemeyer.
Here.
Laura Caroon.
Here.
Deb White. Here. Larry Seljevold.
Here.
Steve Lindas.
Here.
Chuck Hendrickson.
Here.
Mayor Shelley Carlson.
Here. And for those who are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And City Manager Jamali, do we have any agenda amendments? Your microphone isn't on.
Yes, Mayor. We have a request to remove item number 14B from the consent agenda.
All right, item 14B is removed from consent agenda. And then moving on to recognitions and presentations. I will turn the first one over to Lisa Bodie.
Good evening, Mayor Carlson and members of the City Council. My favorite part of the month is bringing you the Moorhead recognition. On behalf of the Moorhead Selection Committee, I want to bring forward Pastor Sue Kosterman as our January 2023 Moorhead recipient. Pastor Sue, who I'm pretty certain all of you know, was nominated by a colleague at Churches United, Shelby Wheeler, and I think as an employer, as a boss, that it's pretty cool to be nominated by someone who works for you. And included in her nomination, I'm going to read just a little bit. It says, Pastor Sue Kosterman is known for her achievements within the city of Moorhead as the current CEO of Churches United. For the past 6 years, her leadership and guidance has impacted countless individuals through steadfast commitment to treating others with compassion, concern, dignity, and respect. In everything we do, Pastor Sue is at the forefront, setting the example and advocating for our community. She even took an extra step, or a paw, by having her rescue dog, Wanda, certified as an emotional support animal. As an employee of Churches United, Shelby says, my nomination is more than professional, but personal, as I strive to be the leader Sue is today, because Pastor Sue Kosterman is truly here for every neighbor in need. And I can't think of a better recipient of this award. And I'll turn it over to you, Mayor, to present the award.
Great, thank you so much, Lisa. I just can't really think of somebody who is more deserving. You do such phenomenal work. So I will turn the microphone over to you, Pastor Sue, if you want to say a few words.
Yes, thank you. I'm deeply honored to be awarded this Moorhead Award. I am so privileged to be a part of the Moorhead community and so fortunate to serve where I do at Churches United, where our commitment is to be here for every neighbor and all of our neighbors in the community. And so thank you again. I'm just deeply honored and humbled to be awarded this.
Thank you and congratulations, Pastor Sue, for all the incredible work you and your staff do for our community. And moving on to the next item on the agenda is a presentation on the upstream mitigation area, and I will turn this over to the Executive Director of the Metro Flood Diversion Authority, Joel Paulson.
Well, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. A few months ago, I came and did a short presentation about the diversion, and I vowed to this council that I would stop back periodically to give you guys some updates. So I have a few construction updates I want to go through with you, and then also talk about some of our innovative mitigation programs that we're implementing on the Minnesota side in the upstream mitigation area for your awareness, and then certainly open to any questions at the tail end. Again, my name is Joel Paulson, Executive Director of the Fargo-Moorhead Diversion Authority. Let's see if I can, there we go. So I just wanted to play a quick construction video. We do release these usually on a monthly basis. This one is from November, but really not a lot has occurred other than construction of the channel over the course of the winter here. So we'll attempt to get this to play here. I think if you hit Control and then click on the play icon. Or try to right click. You can see a dialog box comes up there. No. Anyhow, if we can't get this to work, that's fine. I'll just advise you, if you'd like to see the video, it is a great video. It's on the diversion website, and it is easy to find. We've done a makeover there, and so you should be able to find that fairly easily. Just for the council's awareness, you can see the map up there. We do have construction moving forward on all fronts. We started construction on the diversion channel last August, and they've been working 24 hours, 7 days a week around the clock, even in sub-zero temperatures, which is kind of amazing for our climate and not something that we're really used to. But it's a great opportunity. There's over 100 operators that are employed right now that otherwise would be taking unemployment over the course of the winter. So it's nice to see them out there being productive in the cab and moving a lot of dirt. And that would certainly show up on this video here. The Corps of Engineers continues construction on the 3 large structures on the southern area near the black line there. The diversion inlet structure, the wild rice structure, and the Red River control structure. And that work has continued throughout the winter as well. So moving on, just talking a little bit more Minnesota specific. This graph on the left-hand side shows the property acquisition and property rights that we've acquired to date on the Minnesota side, which is about 33.7% complete. And I've broken this down into specific areas of property rights for your awareness. The first one is the Southern Embankment and associated infrastructure. That's the actual high hazard dam that the Corps is going to be building on the Minnesota side. We're expecting to get the final right-of-way drawings actually next week. And so we'll begin to acquire the remaining portions of that, which is that remaining 75% that you can see. Probably in the next few months, we'll start engaging landowners and working through that process. The second box over to your right, the 25%, is the upstream mitigation area. That's really the flow easements that we need from the properties that will have more water on it now than it did before, because when we stage water for project operation, we have sent out those appraisals to those landowners, and we've successfully acquired 25% of those flow easements to date. That is something that we will have to acquire in order to operate the project. So right now we're looking at final construction and operation in 2027. So we have a few years, but it's still a large number of flow easements that we have to acquire in that upstream mitigation area. The 100% is the Drayton Dam mitigation. This is a project up by Drayton. It's really removing a dam that does not allow fish passage across it today and replacing it with a rock rapid similar to what we have in downtown Fargo here. That really allows sturgeon and other species that we want to see develop in the upper reaches of the Red River to be able to navigate really the entire length from Winnipeg to Breckenridge. And then the last one is the environmental monitoring easements. We have a very robust environmental monitoring plan. It's probably one of the most robust in the nation. You know, we're looking out for plants, insects, animals, you know, geomorphological impacts to the river as far as sedimentation and sediment control. And so we need to have different sites all around the metro area and outside the metro area where we're monitoring these things, taking our measurements, taking our data. And so we've successfully acquired 71% of those environmental monitoring easements in Minnesota. The remaining are at sites that we're still working with landowners on, and we hope to acquire 100% of those by project operation, of course. So talking about a few of our innovative approaches to property mitigation, we've had the luxury of working on this for about a decade. We engaged the property owners really in the last couple of years here to talk about all their different concerns. Out of those concerns came all of these different programs, and we've been engaged in focus groups with the impacted residents, and we're really finding a lot of partnership with them on these programs. I won't go through all of these, but I will advise we do have a property rights acquisition and mitigation plan. It is on our website. It does contain a plethora of information on each one of these programs, and I advise if you're interested in any of these other programs to first stop there and, of course, get a hold of me if you have any questions. Tonight, I really wanted to talk more about the growing season supplemental crop loss program and the prevent plant crop insurance program. As the commission is aware, there's been a lot of concern about project operation and crop loss. as well as the inability to plant crops if we operate the project and they can't get the seed in the ground in a proper time fashion. Both of these were developed with the growers, and we were able to find consensus on how to move forward. And I'll talk a little bit about the specifics of those programs. So the MFDA retained Watson Associates, who is a nationally renowned crop insurance provider, and they developed supplemental programs that go on top of the federal crop insurance program. Traditionally, the federal crop insurance program only protects to about 80% of the yield, 85% of the yield. If there were to be a loss, the producer would be paid out at about 85%. What our product is going to do is go on top of the federal crop insurance product and provide 100%. So if we operate the project, the farmer will be paid out 100% of the crop loss for that particular operational year. We're currently about 80% of the way complete with this product. The reason we can't get to 100 is because the underwriters won't underwrite the product until we get closer to operation. And so we do expect that to happen in about 2026 and be able to offer these policies at no charge to the landowners in anticipation of project operation in 2027 if we were to have a flood event. So eligibility for the crop program, of course, the producer has to be in the upstream mitigation area and be affected by our project. They also have to be participating in the federal crop insurance program as well. And then we'll take care of the remainder of the costs for the supplemental crop insurance product on top of that. So the project must operate as well for this insurance product to be implemented. So obviously, if there's a natural disaster, the federal crop insurance coverage will cover them in that case. We have to operate our project, which means moving the gates and storing water in the upstream mitigation area before our policy would be triggered. So on top of the supplemental crop loss, we also have the Prevent Plant Crop Insurance Program. And this is really used for producers that are unable to plant crops by the established late planting dates set by the federal crop insurance program. And again, this insurance product will also be covered, the cost will be covered by the diversion authority, and it will be provided to any of the landowners that are impacted in the upstream mitigation area. Supplemental crop insurance programs are provided at no cost. I mentioned that. And then we're also working with the federal delegations in DC on both the Minnesota side and the North Dakota side to deal with this issue of actual production history. And I'll attempt to explain this in the most simplistic terms as possible, but under the federal crop insurance program, if there were to be a loss in any particular year, that yield would be calculated at 0 if they had a complete loss. That then works against their insurance premiums for the upcoming years after that. And so we wanted to make sure that if we triggered our supplemental crop loss by operating the project, that we wouldn't have a negative impact on the insurance premiums for the producers in the upstream area in the future. Right now, federal legislation does not allow us to do anything with that, and so there would be a negative impact. And so we're working with our Senate and House side in Minnesota and North Dakota at the federal level to develop language that would really give us an exemption to those provisions in the federal crop insurance law and allow those yields to be removed from the premium calculations for the producers. So more to come on that. More than likely it'll be in the Farm Bill this year, which we're anticipating to get in front of Congress sometime in the fall of 2023. So this is just a recap. Anything that is outside of project operation, the federal crop insurance coverage would cover. Anything where we operate the project and there's negative impacts both on planting or crop loss, our product would handle that. And then I just wanted to show how long we've been working in partnership with the growers in the upstream mitigation group area. Really, this issue has kind of been out there for even since before August of 2020. But between August and 2020 up until today, we've had a number of public meetings. We've had a number of focus group meetings with producers in the upstream mitigation area. And we've really been able to settle on a product that meets all of the concerns that the producers had in the upstream mitigation area. So that's all I have. I'll speed it up here, but I'll certainly be available for any questions if you have any. If you want more information, that was our website there. Certainly check that out. We've added some new content there, and it's a lot of information. And of course, you can always get a hold of me if you have any questions that you would like to talk about.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paulson. And I would agree that there is a lot of the information that is on the diversion website, and the videos and pretty much anything that you would have questions about is just directly on the website. But with that, are there any questions from council for Mr. Paulson? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for coming to the council meeting, and I would anticipate we'll see you again in a few months.
Sounds great. Thank you, Mayor.
Yep, thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Lindas moves approval.
Second, Niesemeyer.
I have Lindas and Niesemeyer. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, we will need to do a roll call because Councilmember Seldgevold is attending virtually.
Nelson,
Aye.
Gilbertson,
Aye.
Niesemeyer,
Yes.
Caroon,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seldgevold,
Aye.
Lindas,
Yes.
Hendrickson.
Yes.
Right, the consent agenda is approved. And moving on to the approval of the meeting minutes from the January 9th, 2023 council meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved, Caroon.
Wait seconds.
I have Caroon and then White. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, if I could get a roll call, please.
Gilbertson,
Aye.
Niesemeyer,
Yes.
Caroon, White,
Yes.
Seldgevold,
Yes.
Lindas,
Yes.
Hendrickson,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
All right, the minutes have been approved. Moving on to number 7 on the agenda. This is a time for citizens to address the council. If there are any citizens in attendance in the audience who would like to address the city council, this would be the time to do that now. And you would just need to fill out the form to speak with the city clerk. Are there any? All right, ma'am, if you want to go to the podium. And how this works, you will get 3 minutes to speak. It's supposed to help. I wish there was like a timer, but it's 3 minutes. This will be green. And when the 3 minutes is up, then it will turn red. So I will need you to state your name and address for the record, and then you can go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Hillary Ray. My address 996 18th Avenue Circle North in Moorhead. I'm here to commend the Moorhead Human Rights Commission as well as the City Council for their courage in selecting Tammy Kromenacher as a recipient of a 2022 Human Rights Award. My family and I moved here in 2013. When we were looking for a home, the City of Fargo in North Dakota offered some significant advantages over the City of Moorhead in Minnesota: lower taxes, a greater inventory of available housing stock. But I wanted to live in a community that better aligns with my personal values. My family and I are longtime volunteer escorts at the Red River Women's Clinic, so we are quite familiar with the vitriol directed against it and its director. In the aftermath of the Dobbs decision, it would have been easy for Ms. Kromenacher to knuckle under and find another career that didn't involve people consigning her to hell on the daily, but she refused. I was incredibly grateful that this community, my community, was here to become the new home of the clinic, and proud to read that the Human Rights Commission honored Ms. Kromenacher for continuing to provide health care services that respect each patient's carefully considered decisions about what's best for them and their families. Every week that I escort I see and hear the gratitude from patients and the 12,600 individual donors who contributed to the GoFundMe that helped enable the clinic's efficient relocation. Obviously share the admiration for Ms. Kromenacker's determination that was reflected in her recent Human Rights Award. I am thankful and proud of the place that I chose to make my home.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other members in the audience who would like to speak at this time? All right, seeing none, we will move on. To number 14B, which was pulled off consent, and this is a resolution to approve a new liquor license to Classic Touch Lounge. And I'm assuming I turn that over to you, City Manager Molly.
Yes, I see Councilmember Seljevold has his hands up, and he was the one who had asked that it be pulled.
All right, I will turn it over to you then, Councilmember Seljevold.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm only going to extend this meeting for about 2 more minutes because I'm in favor of this liquor license. But when we were talking in the budget process, and I found the liquor license and the fees very confusing, and I kind of want to use this as an example of how it's confusing. I think that the state requires us to issue certain licenses, but we set the fees. Now, in this case, the city has done their due diligence. They've done all their background, and they said for $3,500, you can sell liquor through Monday through Saturday, but you have to pay another $200 for Sunday. I think if a business is qualified to sell liquor Monday through Saturday, they're probably qualified to sell it on Sunday and don't need an extra fee for that. And with that said, I move for approval of this liquor license.
Thank you, Councilmember Seljevold. Is there a second?
I'll second. Deb White.
We have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? All right, seeing none, could I get a roll call vote, please?
Niesemeyer,
Yes.
Caroon,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seljevold,
Aye.
Lindas,
Yes.
Hendrickson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Gilbertson.
Aye.
All right, the motion to approve has carried. And now moving on to a resolution to approve the appointment of the new Moorhead Fire Chief. I'll turn that over to you, City Manager Molly.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Tonight, you're being asked to approve the appointment of Jeff Wallen as Fire Chief in Moorhead. Maybe I'd just start by just expressing gratitude for the number of firefighters that were here and fire leadership who were just called out on some sort of emergency, doing the things that you do when you have that job. But it's great to see that show of support here. Let me just start by saying that tonight is a big win for Moorhead. Jeff has shown the commitment, the perseverance, knowledge, and technical skills to be a great chief. A little history. Jeff Wallen was first hired by the city of Moorhead in 1994 as a firefighter. Since that time, he's held the position of assistant fire chief, deputy fire chief, and most recently, interim fire chief in Moorhead. He has also been a fire instructor at the Minnesota State Community and Technical Colleges on campuses throughout the state of Minnesota. Jeff has positive and longstanding relationships with many in Moorhead, the metro area, and across Minnesota. And there are certainly great things on the horizon for the Moorhead Fire Department. And so with that, pursuant to Chapter 6, Section 602, Subdivision 3 of the Moorhead City Charter, in which the city manager is to, quote, select department heads on the basis of merit and fitness and subject to approval by the city council, I recommend the appointment of Jeff Wallen to serve as the next fire chief in Moorhead effective January 24th, 2023.
All right, with that, do I have a motion?
So moved. Niesemeyer.
Linda, second.
I have Niesemeyer and Lindas. Further questions or comments? Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mayor. My son has the great honor and privilege of being engaged.
Go ahead.
Of being engaged to marry the niece of the candidate, so I will be abstaining from the vote.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, could I get a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
Gilbertson,
Aye.
Nesemeyer,
Yes.
Karoon,
Yes.
Seljavold,
Aye.
Lindos,
Yes.
Hendrickson.
Yes.
And I get to have the honor of saying that that motion unanimously has carried. And I feel like the phone alarm that just went off is kind of like the sounding of the transition to a new fire chief. So Chief Wallen, would you like to come and say a few words?
Thank you very much. Mayor, council members, city staff, and attendees here this evening. Moorhead's first fire department was organized in 1872 by 37 volunteers who recognized a need and came together to serve their neighbors. Our first career firefighters drove teams of horse-drawn apparatus, worked a 156-hour work week or 6.5 days a week to maintain a state of readiness to respond to fires in our town. Today's firefighters work an average of 56 hours a week on one of 3 rotating shifts, providing a whole host of public safety services to our entire community. We're part of a network that relies on partnerships with state, county, and city departments, with healthcare and emergency service responders, law enforcement agencies, and nonprofits serving those in need. Our department has changed a lot in our 150-year history, constantly striving to provide the highest quality of services to our community. And I have similarly dedicated my life to public service and to this department. I've had the pleasure of, over the last 28 years, working with 4 of our previous fire chiefs, and it is my honor to accept this role as the 10th chief of the Moorhead Fire Department. Thank you very much.
So Chief Wallen, I did some really basic math, and 29 years you have been a firefighter. And I can say without hesitation that being part of your interview process was a pleasure, and you were just very impressive, and the poise that you handled all of the questions and the challenges that you have faced the last, I would say, a year and a half, being the interim chief, or I don't even know how long it's been since you've been the interim chief, and taking on a lot of additional duties. I'm just really excited for you, and I'm excited for the city of Moorhead, and I wore red tonight in your honor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And to your beautiful wife and son, thank you for being here, and to the firefighters who didn't have to go out on the call, thank you also for being here to support your new fire chief. All right. Moving on to the resolution to amend resolutions 2021-0308-19 and 2022-0425-3, and I will turn it over to Ms. Lisa Bodie.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Staff needs your direction on a legislative matter related to the local option sales tax. There's briefing materials in your packet. The resolution, I think some of the details have changed based on some financial information that has been evolving over the past several days. But as part of the council's legislative agenda, our priorities include, the city's priorities include seek opportunities to address construction and financing inflation through construction materials sales tax exemption, extended sales tax collection period, or other means with regard to the Moorhead Community Center and Public Library. So this request for a local option sales tax was passed by the legislature in 2021. And in 2022, we had concerns that before we put the question on the ballot, that we may not have had, with the rising interest rates, we may not have had enough resources to build the project that we want, because the interest rates on paying the bonds would cut into the construction project budget. And so we asked the legislature for an additional 8 years to collect taxes on the project and kept the project cost the same. And the tax committees in both the House and Senate said yes to that, but unfortunately, the legislature did not pass an omnibus tax bill in 2022. And so the city and the Vote Yes committee went forward with the legislation as had been approved for $31.59 million and a collection period of 22 years. There were a number of cities caught in this same predicament where they had requests pending due to inflation. And the advice that's been provided thus far in the legislature has been that if you want additional consideration by the legislature for any type of adjustment, that by January 31st, you need to pass a resolution indicating that. And that also that the legislature does have the ability to make such adjustments. They have the legal authority to do that. Since that time, which was just about a week and a half ago, we have been doing, our financial advisors have been doing some analysis of sales tax. We've reached out to the gentleman who did our sales tax incidence study, because what we have learned is that online sales are not reflected in the tax incidence study that we had conducted in 2021. Because the collections are only documented at Minnesota Department of Revenue when there is a local option sales tax in place. But we analyzed Clay County's local option sales tax, and while our sales tax went down just a little bit from 2019 to 2020, Clay County's sales tax collections during that period of time on their local option sales tax went up 20%. So we knew our figures were off. So we reached out to both Department of Revenue and U of M Extension, who said that taking a proportion of Clay County's sales tax estimate and applying it to the total tax collection in the county would yield a reasonable estimate. And so that's 72% or $2.85 million per year. So we asked Baker Tilly, our financial advisors, then to say, okay, if we did get that the extension from 22 to 30 years, and the new collection amount, how much revenue would that generate? And it was just over 48 million, so almost a 57% increase in sales tax. And I don't believe we need that much for the library. But then we asked them, okay, could we collect if we kept the sales tax at 22 years and we had this new revenue number, how much could that sales tax generate in 22 years, where we would keep the collection period what was approved by the voters? And that is 41.485 million. So it is, almost 25% more than what we had initially thought would be collected. So I'm looking for some direction. We can continue the conversation. Over the past few days too, I've been in discussions with James Hand, who was on the task force for the Library Community Center, and asked him about construction inflation. And he thinks it could be upwards of 19.7%. He's a very precise volunteer. And he has significant construction management experience. So we do have this opportunity, and the window is closing on the opportunity. So I'd like some direction from you, whether you'd like to initiate that conversation with the legislature about keeping. I think the recommendation that that it is starting to form is keep that 22 years because that is what we told the voters, and that would be sufficient to collect revenue. But given that we have big dreams for that facility, would you be interested in requesting additional consideration to collect a higher amount of sales tax during that 22-year period? Dan, did I cover the basic talking points there?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Bodie. Questions or comments from Councilmember Gilbertson?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Ms. Bodie. So that you need an answer by the 31st, or probably like now, right?
We could possibly amend it. It gets a little messy, but what I've been told is that if we don't have a resolution to the committee by January 31st, we won't have the opportunity to have further consideration in deliberations.
So whether we decide to go 30 years or if you decide to go above 31.59, it will not go back to the voters? We don't need to take it back to the voters?
The legislature would have the ability to make the adjustment. And given what we've learned in the last 2 days on the sales tax, I would, we shouldn't need to go to 30 years. We could keep it at 22 years, but increase the amount because the amount of revenue is significantly higher than we had initially projected.
But at the end of the day, it's still a projection. So
It is a projection.
Last spring or summer, we approved to go an extra 8 years to get to the 31.59. And we still don't have a design. We still don't have a location. We still have no idea what it's going to cost. So I would imagine that we could, if we can do it January 31st of 23, we start collections April 1st. What's to say that, okay, we've got a design that's going to cost $36 million. I would think we could come back to the legislature in January of 24 and ask for the exact same thing. It probably gets a little cumbersome, but it was only 60 days ago, it was 60 plus days ago that the 64% of the people voted for 22 years at 31.59 million. When I read that in there, it was 30 years at 48.5 million. I would be willing to go the extra 8 years, but I also would be very in favor of waiting till we know more and exactly what it's going to cost.
Councilmember Gilbertson, the resolution in your packet was based on increasing to 30 years, based on not fully understanding that we could get it done in 22 years. And so this draft resolution would be amended today. We would not pursue the additional 8 years. We would just, but we have the ability to collect more revenue within the 22-year period. And maybe you already understood that. I just want to make sure our current understanding is we wouldn't seek more time, but we would enable the collection. Right now, there is a double backstop on the project where you're limited in the amount of collection and you're limited in the amount of time.
No, I understand. Yeah, I understand
Okay.
that. And last year we thought we weren't going to get to the 31.5 and 22. So like, okay, well, let's add 8 years. That seemed reasonable because if you hit your projections and it's paid off in 18 years, great. Library and community center is paid for. I'm really uncomfortable with going a higher dollar amount without having, especially today because because all this changed in the last 48 hours. We're talking days now. We're not. We were talking about this for 2 years on a plan. Well, there's not even a building, so we don't have an idea what it costs. Because prior we were worried about collecting the money in 22 years. Now we're saying we're going to overshoot it by 54%. So the truth is somewhere. The reality is somewhere in the middle. So my point is, I'm not comfortable going above the 31.59 until we have a lot more information.
Ms. Lisa Bodie, just to clarify, when you say collect more, the sales tax wouldn't be more. It's just the ability to be able to collect the half cent for the 22 years would actually generate more money. Is that correct?
It would be more revenue, right, right. The per dollar purchase would stay at half a cent. So it would be half, it would be the same rate, but it's going to yield more because the projections were underestimated and the economy has improved.
And if we had more accurate information when they did the tax increment study, which wasn't able to calculate that online sales tax, if that would have been included, likely the amount that would have been requested and on the ballot would have been this higher amount. Is that right?
To some extent, I mean, the facility is not fully designed, but we have an idea on the square footage that is envisioned, which I believe is just over 55,000 square feet. We've worked with we had a construction estimate, a detailed construction estimate from a construction company that we started using in 2021. And the inflation factor that we had, there was an inflation factor in there, but it wasn't as much as construction inflation has turned out to be. So my thought is, this is your decision, but just want to make sure that we have the revenue we want to build the facility that we want. And knowing that it could be done in 22 years gave me great comfort because, too, that is what the voters approved. And when the statute upon which sales taxes are to be based, local option sales taxes are to be based, tells you to put in a number of years and include, like your construction cost plus financing, and that an estimated amount of the cost of the project. Well, they took that estimated amount and they made it an amount certain, and that makes it more difficult when you are realizing that this is not a linear process. And so I am not advocating one position or another, but I want to bring this opportunity to your attention. We have submitted all the documentation needed to begin the sales tax collection on April 1 of this year. The design process is underway, and the finance director, I believe, has spoken about selling bonds this fall. So, those are the parameters that we're working under right now.
Thank you, Ms. Bodie. Councilmember White and then Councilmember Lindas.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple of questions and concerns. So when I appreciate that we have better news from this latest estimate, but my concern about using that as a prediction of how much we would be able to raise in 22 years is that, right now we're experiencing inflation, and that those higher prices have resulted in higher sales tax revenue being generated. And right now it hasn't necessarily, the inflation hasn't slowed spending as much, but inflation is starting to slow down, and we're hoping for that soft landing. But if we don't have that and we start to enter a recession, we will see a dip in sales, and then we may not have the same sales tax generation that we're getting in this last year. And so I'm a little concerned about using that high mark as an estimate of what we'll see over the next 22 years. And it would be great, but I like a little cushion. I'm not thrilled with going against something that was different from what we just had our residents vote on. But my question is, because I know when we voted on this the first time, it's such a convoluted, multi-step process. Would we be able to today, because my understanding is they need us to make a decision soon, and this is more of this isn't something that we could necessarily go back to in the next session. This is them trying to rectify things because they didn't act on stuff in the last session. And so we need to make a decision over whether we can request permission to be able to change it. Could we do that today, and then later on decide if that's actually what we want to do. So if we were to vote today to request the legislature's permission to either raise the amount and, or either just the amount or the amount and the amount of time, would that mean that we wouldn't necessarily be locked in? We could, as we got additional information later, we could decide whether we actually needed to do that. But at least we would know that we had the ability to use that tool if we found it to be necessary.
In response to that question, I would say, yes, you would maintain, because you will be the ones approving the project. You will be the ones approving the sale of bonds. I would say that, and while the amount of revenue that we now believe could be generated in 22 years is $41.485 million, the amount of the original project estimate, and it is an estimate, plus the 19.7% inflation is a lower number, and it's just over 37 million. So you've got an upper bound, and you have other choices to make if you choose to do this at all.
Councilmember Lindos.
Thank you, Mayor Carlson. Director Bodie, I have a couple questions, but the first one is the construction design essentially is, there's kind of a hard stop in terms of right now what, if you go out for bids, what they could come back. I mean, they can't design a $38,000 building, can they, if we only have approved 31 million, sorry. Add zeros.
I guess, yes.
I mean, isn't that, essentially the voters, approved the library and community center. Some of them absolutely were paying attention to how much it was going to increase their sales tax. Very few knew exactly how much. Whenever I was talking to people, most people were saying, hey, this is a great thing, a new library and community center. And I don't know if necessarily everyone cognated exactly how much it was going to be. And so my feeling is that people are expecting a new library and community center, and I would like to be a little bit more open to construction and inflationary changes and give, essentially the designers of this facility as much leeway as possible, with the full knowledge that we can pull back and say, hey, this is too much, and make that approval, because we have that in our ability. But we need to ask the legislature essentially to allow us extra time potentially, or potentially extra revenue, because right now we would stop collecting when we reach 31 million. I mean, I think that's the way it's written, right? Even if that's before 22 years. Okay,
Correct.
So
that's correct.
all right, so I want to make sure I understand kind of the stipulation. So I mean, I would not at all be opposed to both acknowledging the additional money that we could be raising in 22 years, and or if economic forecasts, because Councilmember Gilbertson is right, these are forecasts, things could change. I do hope for a soft landing, but if it doesn't, we might need extra time. If you needed extra time, could you ask for it in 2 years hence or 5 years hence? Can you change it once it starts, or once you buy the bonds, are you locked in?
In response to that question, I would say you are locked into your bonds, because it'd be like locked into a mortgage for those of us that, for homeowners. And you could go back to the legislature and say, look, our collections are below what we anticipated. We're going to need more time. And they could choose to grant that time if they chose.
Okay.
I've seen other communities do that.
All right, so then I'm also very aware that our legislature changes. Last year, we had voted to actually extend the time because of the economic forecasts, and the Senate didn't do their job. We didn't pass an omnibus bill, and I really think that it would happen this time. It might even happen next year, but sometimes it's better to start early with the expectation that it'll get done eventually. So I'm very happy to extend the amount that we collect, and I wouldn't even be opposed to extending the time, knowing full well we don't have to take that time. If the design comes in at, 38 million and we build it and we're done, we can stop the collection when we actually reach that amount. And I guess the thing that in my mind is I had to replace a roof. And so I got in my mind that we had to replace a roof. And I had estimates, but they were estimates for the project cost, and you decide what you're going to do. And then when the roof gets halfway pulled off, they start finding other problems with your roof. I didn't say, gosh, stop, I only want half a roof. We fixed the rest of the roof, and there was, unintended costs that you find a way to cover. And to me, this is giving us more flexibility in covering those unexpected costs, which is construction and inflation in this case.
Other council members who would like to respond or make a motion or have a question? Councilmember Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councilperson Linda. It adds more flexibility. Yeah, and this is going to go up. I mean, it might, well, I shouldn't say that might go up, but we noticed from 5 years ago, things have risen dramatically. So I like the flexibility of this, and I'm in full support of it.
Councilmember Niesemeyer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm also going to say that I agree and look to what we had already discussed at extending the term and looking at how economic developments have happened. And they've shifted a lot from when we started planning this wonderful library and community center. And I think our community is really excited for it. And so I too sort of lean into raising the amount that we are collecting in order to plan and approach inflation at the time that we have now, as well as extend the collection period because we don't know what will happen moving forward. And I am a big believer, and I enjoy the idea that if we collect what we need, the half-cent sales tax will stop. And I think that that is something that, looking at the material that was put forward, that law enforcement facility is doing really well, and it's likely that that Clay County sales tax is going to drop off early because it's doing so well. And so I think that that tells us something that's really outstanding about our community and the people who come to our community to shop. We're doing really well. And, we can't put all of our eggs in one basket. And so I think if we look at increasing both time as well as the amount, we will secure our community's future for the library and the community center.
Councilmember Kroon.
Thank you, Mayor. So originally thinking about this, it made me a little bit uncomfortable thinking about changing the terms that our voters agreed to, but also thinking about the spirit of the campaign and what the voters wanted, and they wanted the library and community center. And that's really what we want to be able to give them. We want to be able to have this be the place that we had promised or, inspired people to get excited about. It's a huge investment for a community. And I think at the end of the day, we want to have that place that is what folks wanted. We don't want to have something that if we were able to collect a little bit more, we could have done what we wanted to do. I think we do have the flexibility going forward to make changes, like to cut back if we were like, we can't, this is too much for our community, can't bear it right now. We want to cut back on what's collected or how much we spend, but we're not going to be able to have that opportunity probably to be able to go in after that money again and add on top of it. So this is kind of a unique time that we can choose to invest or to not. It does concern me a little bit extending it to the 30 years and going over, so keeping it at the 22 and what we can collect in that time frame is something I'm okay with agreeing to.
Mayor, if I could respond to Councilmember Curran's comment. The legislature does hold the cards here, and we like, when we make requests like this, we like to have it based on something that we can hang our hats on, so that, that we're not, we provided an estimate in order to calculate that 31.59 million. It wasn't a figure pulled out of the air. It was based on something. Even though we didn't have the full design, we took a look at institutional construction in the FM metro area, tried to extrapolate, for time and for the, the potential location and things too. And I do like the idea of not asking for both a time and financial extension, because it does better honor the taxpayers in the situation that we're in. And I, also like asking for, something that's based on something, so that when the mayor is testifying, or I am testifying, or any of you are testifying to this project, that we can say, we need this. And I'm really happy about the revenue projections, because it doesn't mean that interest rates are so difficult for this project that it will eat into the construction cost. But the thing that worries me most is inflation. But the materials you have did not reflect those two bond runs that we asked of Baker Tilly, because they weren't available at the time your packet was prepared. So that's why that 30 years has probably added confusion to the issue. So my apologies.
Councilmember Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one note, this did pass with 64% of the votes, and people in Moorhead know prices are going up. Groceries are going up, everything's going up. So they realize, that prices go up. So with that, I'd make a motion to approve this.
I will second that with the caveat of the way it's written right now is increased period of 30 years and an increased collection amount. So we want to strike the increased 30 years, right? And just have the increased collection amount. Is that what you were? All right. And then we don't need to specify the exact increased collection amount?
John?
To be frank, I think it'd be better not to specify it.
Because things could change between now and when the actual legislature actually decides.
Gives the team more flexibility in talking with the legislature.
I think Mr. Zart told me that, the statute requires an estimated collection amount. We could provide the bond run that we have, attach that by reference.
Wanted to give staff some flexibility, just direct staff to, put together an estimate of what it would cost and the maximum amount, because you still have a whole legislative process to go through.
Right, but the purpose of this resolution, we just basically strike the to amended and then strike the reflect an estimated sales tax collection period of 30 years. And so it'll just read amended to reflect an increased collection amount.
I just want to make sure that Councilmember Hendrickson, who actually made the motion, if that's what your intention was.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. So with that, I do have an emotion. I do have an emotion, a motion and a second. Councilmember Gilbertson.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So that's going to cross as a blank check for a library community center.
And put in an amount if you want.
Well, I'm not in favor of it going up. The voters voted for 31.59 in 22 years, just over 60 days ago.
Okay. Councilmember White. Oh, you didn't. Who did? Oh, Councilmember Lindas.
I was just going to say that this is not a blank check at all, because whatever staff, whenever they're talking to the legislature, they're going to have their, or if I'm talking to the legislature, I'm going to have it based upon projections that are actually based in quantifiable facts. So right now, that's around, I guess it could be changing, but essentially around 40 million, 45.
Other comments or questions from council members? Councilmember Niesemeyer.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. Could we review the motion?
Yes, either Councilmember Hendrickson or Councilmember Lindas, could you restate the motion, please?
So now therefore it be resolved by the City Council of the City of Moorhead, Minnesota, that Resolution 2022-0425-3 is hereby amended to reflect an increased collection amount. Everything else stays the same in the resolution.
Any other questions or comments by council members? All right, seeing none, City Attorney Shockley. And you might want to get closer to your microphone so it's a little bit easier to hear you.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, sorry.
Easier.
We may want to, if as part of the resolution, you may want to add in and attaching a bond run for the maximum principal amount.
I'll agree to that.
I also agree.
That would be added to the motion. All right, seeing no further questions or comments, could we get a roll?
He has his hand up.
Larry has one.
Oh, I literally just looked at you and you did not have your hand up. So Councilmember Seljevold, sorry about that.
Because I just put it up. I want to know exactly what's the amount, what's the estimated we can get clear there. I'm unclear about the exact amount.
Director Bodie.
Mayor, Councilmember Seljevold, the projected project cost exclusive of financing expenses, but all inclusive, it's all covered by a bond run, would be $41,485,000. And that is based on Baker Tilly's projections of interest rates at the time bonds are sold, and a modest inflation increase to the sales tax revenue.
Do you have any additional questions, Councilmember Seljevold?
No.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a motion and a second on the floor, and seeing no further questions or comments, could I get a roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Sorry, Hendrickson,
Yes.
Lindas,
Yes.
Seljevold,
No.
White,
Yes.
Caroon,
Yes.
Niesemeyer,
Yes.
Gilbertson, Nelson,
No.
And I believe that motion does not pass. Thank you, Ms. Bodie. All right, moving on to mayor and council reports. Any council members who have a report? Councilmember Niesemeyer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to report on the Cass Clay Food Commission. They met January 11th, and it was a wonderful opportunity. It's one of my new committee appointments to be on this commission, and they had some great new videos that the commission put out. They have 5 that were slated for this year. 3 new ones just came out. The impact of pollinators on our food system, eating fresh and local on a budget, and backyard chicken keeping. And so I encourage Moorhead residents to check out all of the wonderful resources that the Cass Clay Food Commission has on their website. You can also check out all of their information on Facebook if you're interested. in those great resources, in addition to their videos that they just put out. Also, I want to invite everybody to come out to the ribbon cutting at the Resource Recovery Center, which is a intergovernmental collaboration between the Clay County and the City of Moorhead. And the opening, or ribbon cutting rather, is on Tuesday, January 31st. It's super great. The address is 3322 15th Avenue North. I always like to tell people it's just past Aldi. So if you can find Aldi, you can find the Resource Recovery Center. The ceremony for ribbon cutting starts at 2:30. Media tours start at 1:30. So those media folks who are in the room, we'd love to see you there. But they're going to have snacks and treats, tours after the ribbon cutting at 2:30. The more people who come out on that very cold day will make that event and that space outstanding, because it's a great opportunity to take all of the spaces that we've had for the city and the county and combine them into one location. I think we've got a lot of great opportunities here for our citizens to just get all of their great stuff taken care of: recycling, hazardous household waste, and so much more. So I look forward to having a centralized location and seeing a whole bunch of people there on Tuesday.
Thank you, Councilmember Niesmeyer. Other council members who have reports. Councilmember Lindas.
Frostival is happening, and so there's a whole bunch of events. Go online to learn more, but I'm particularly looking forward to Lonnie Dupree at the Moorhead Library at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Otherwise, there's free snow out there to slide around on, which is a lot of fun. And there's some really cool sculptures. The other thing is on, so Inclusive Moorhead is a project of Resilient Moorhead. And on Sunday, the 29th, from 3:30 p.m. till 6 o'clock, I believe, they are having another gathering. And so everyone is welcome to attend. This gathering, again, is 3:30 p.m. Sunday. It's at the First Congressional United Church of Christ, just over here on 8th Street. And so, again, everyone is invited. The idea is to be as inclusive to everyone in the community. There's usually food and activities, and network, get to know your neighbors.
Congregational, not congregational.
I meant congregational. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lindas. Other council members? Okay. With that, for the mayor report, give a quick overview. There's been a lot happening in the last 2 weeks. On January 10th, Senator Klobuchar was in town to do a press release in regards to the award of $26.3 million to the city of Moorhead for our 11th Street Underpass project that was awarded out of the Rural Surface Transportation Grant Program. We were one of 12 grantees across the entire United States. And I just wanted to give a lot of gratitude and thanks to Director Lisa Bodie and our city engineer, Bob Zimmerman, and also Justin Knopf from the Minnesota DOT for their many years, 9 years actually to be exact, on getting this funding for our 11th Street underpass. State of Minnesota has also contributed $62 million for in bond dollars for the 11th Street. It's the largest allocation outside of the metro. Burlington, Northern Santa Fe, $3.7 million, and the Clay County and the city of Moorhead contributed $3.5 million. Just for those who really love numbers, over the next 20 years, there's going to be about $240 million in public benefits that are going to be captured with this underpass, and 254 crashes that will be prevented, and 7.2 million hours in cumulative traffic delays that will have been avoided when this underpass is open. Currently, we have 70 trains that pass through our downtown, and it leads to 5 hours of delays. By 2045, it's going to be 90 trains and 7 hours of delays every single day. I also have the honor of being now an ambassador for the Missouri River Energy Services. Our MPS director, Travis Schmidt, asked if I would be willing to do that, and so I underwent some very basic ambassador training, so that will put that under to be to give you more information later, but it's primarily to just raise awareness of public utilities throughout the region and the fact that there is a lot of value having our own utilities. I had the opportunity to meet with Steve Cryer, who is the pastor of Ignite Church, and interesting enough, that church has a sister church and relationship with an entity church in the Ukraine. And I was able to connect him with Shannon Full, who is the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, because right now there is a program to be able to sponsor Ukrainians to be able to leave their country and relocate to the United States, specifically in the Fargo-Moorhead community. And so that is a great connection that I was able to make between those two, and hopefully it'll result in people being able to live in a peaceful community versus the current war that's happening in Ukraine right now. Also, there was the first official meeting of the Red River Dispatch Center. I have been now appointed the vice chair of that board of directors, and Councilmember Nelson is also on that board with me, and he was appointed to the finance chair. So that will be a committee for those to be aware of, that it will be meeting the second Thursday of every month at 10 a.m. There's a lot happening since we will be building a new dispatch center in our community. Let's see here. Few other meetings that I've had, but one that was really interesting to me was I met with a provost, City Manager Molly and I met with Tim Flacco, who's provost of Tri-College, and he gave us some update regarding the great work being done by Tri-College in the community. And one of the things that he provided to us was a survey and a study that they did in June 2022 about student recruitment and how to really market the metro. And some of the things that they focused on was looking to what are the attributes we have in attracting students to the metro area, things that we're missing, the tactics that are currently working, and new approaches that should be tried. And what resulted in that was really the fact that we don't really tell our story very well. And we don't necessarily tell it through the media that the students are accessing, like TikTok and Instagram. And the two takeaways from the study that I saw was that today's students really want a fun and immersive post-pandemic experience, and they are craving experiences and connections. And this actually ties right to the community center library that we will be building here, which really seeks to create some of those experiences and provide that connectivity to the students that live and work and look for things to do in our community. And so I am glad that we got 64% of the vote to move ahead with that project, because that is something that is really going to be a part of recruiting students to come and then hopefully stay in the city of Moorhead. So with that, that is my update. City Manager Molly.
Thank you, Mayor. Two brief comments. I know some of you have been, folks have reached out with parking concerns at the high school, and they're historic, they're real, and now with the construction and everything else. But I just want to assure you that our lines are open for calls and participation. We have a staff team. It's really been quite interesting and rewarding to see the folks from the schools come together with the city, Public Works, with the police department, with the others, all trying to figure out how to make this work. These aren't new issues that cities face. It happens kind of regularly. Moorhead has a history of being able to crack tough nuts. There was a parking issue around MSUM a number of years ago, and worked with neighbors, and that has been resolved. So, we'll do that here, and I think that kind of is a function of being open to giving solutions time to work their way out and through participation. So I just want to recognize, especially council members Niesemeyer and Caroon in Ward 2, who have been so encouraging to work together with the neighbors and staff to figure this out. So there'll be more on that. We're going to figure this out, I have no doubt. The other is that I just wanted to thank Chief Wallen again for all of the service over the many number of years, and then especially, he's been the interim chief for an extended amount of time, and that took a lot of patience and endurance and And I see Leanne and your family sitting there, and you guys have really been just wonderful public servants and wonderful people to work with and know, and looking forward to the future. We have a really nice event planned with the fire department with some of the promotions that have occurred over the last year or so, where we can really recognize the wonderful work that happens there, and then give Jeff his golden axe and all the stuff, so that we can get together and families can come and be a part of it, and council members will be involved. And really looking forward to engaging with the public on the wonderful things that are happening at the Moorhead Fire Department.
Thank you, City Manager Molly. I also neglected to mention that the State of the Cities was held on Thursday. We had 650 people attend in person, with a couple hundred more or so online. It was a real great opportunity to be able to talk about the work that was done in 2022 in the city of Moorhead, as well as the things that we're going to be looking forward to in 2023. And just kudos to the Chamber of Commerce for putting on a real phenomenal event, and for Livewire for sponsoring it, and Excel Energy. They did a phenomenal job. And then on Friday, some of us were able to attend the intergovernmental retreat, where a number of elected officials and other groups that work frequently with elected bodies in Clay County were able to attend the retreat and have a time to converse and learn and educate and share some information with one another. So thank you to the Moorhead Public Schools for putting that on. It was a great day. All right. I, for whatever reason, put my agenda away. So moving on, we do not have an executive session tonight. Do we have any new business? None. Then it is 6:51 and we are adjourned. Thank you, Moorhead.